Doing a thing called Redshift that is, surprise, surprise, it's sci-fi. It involves space, time travel, just a whole bunch of cool stuff. It's really annoying how much I can't talk about it and how I might have already said too much, but we've already got a really awesome director lined up who I'm sure many of you will be familiar with too. Unfortunately, that's all I can give you on that one. And I have no idea when it's coming out either. Anyone else? Oh, on Tabletop. That was really fun. So for those of you who don't know, Tabletop is a show produced by Geek and Sundry. That's Felicia Day's company. Will Wheaton is the host. I went on it and got to play Settlers of Catan, which I probably before that played maybe once a year for the last few years, and I would always forget the rules and then come back to it and then sort of get a handle on it and then forget the rules again. But when I played it, this time they had a game coach and I got like kind of really into it to the point where I ended up buying it at home and getting the app on my iPad and my girlfriend. It's still really weird. I'm married now, so my wife and I mean, it's been 11 years. It's about time we, got married. But so my wife and I started playing it a whole bunch, and then I went back and watched the episode, and I was like, "You're cheating! You're cheating really bad!" Because none of us realized it because we were all so sort of crazy and trying to film it and everything. Like, I won the game, spoiler, sorry, but I kind of want to go back and do it again because I made so many mistakes in my thing, and I was like chucking cards left, right, and center when I couldn't, and I was all smug and like, haha, I beat you guys, and they're all mad. And then I looked at it and I cheated, so I'm sorry. But that was my thing. It was really fun to do, though. We filmed it in probably one of the sketchiest places I've ever filmed, in a weird, I can't even call it an abandoned warehouse, in a place that wasn't downtown LA. It was outside of downtown LA, in a place where no one really actually lives. But it sort of looked like it could have been someone's, I don't know, really fancy drug mansion. Except it was in like a weird old building, and it was creaky, and there was like, it was really kind of neat looking inside, but I'm pretty sure a lot of crime has happened there before. Anyone else? Okay. There you go.
How's your experience on Warehouse 13?
Oh, Warehouse was awesome. I mean, that whole thing sort of came about. There had been ideas of having a proper crossover with Eureka and Warehouse, having them in the same universe, but they weren't sure if they could really do that, given that they'd already brought Niall and Erica on and Joe Morton on as well in the first season as different characters. But one year at Comic-Con in San Diego, Alice and I met. Allison plays Claudia. We met at the party there, and we just hit it off, and we became really good friends. And we were sort of like, we would do things like go to the sci-fi offices to go just visit while we were hanging out, and be like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we were on each other's shows, guys? And luckily, a few of the writers were really into the idea too, and after a little bit of pestering, and depending on who you ask, I mean, definitely someone at the top had the idea. Someone in the network totally had the idea. It was like, yeah, you know what I think would be a good idea? If you guys crossed over on each other's shows. So like, yeah, that's a great idea, boss. So they wrote the crossovers, and I essentially got to go and have a 2-week paid vacation with a bunch of my really good friends in, a different city. And I mean, there's plenty of stories I can tell you from the set of that. Actually, I wish Eddie and Saul were here so they could refresh me on some of the shenanigans we got into.
Tell us anyway.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like remember some of them. Okay, here's a classic Eddie moment. We were, I think it was the last day we were filming the first episode I was in. And we were in that old computer lab thing. I think we were getting attacked by robot spiders. If I recall correctly, that's what they were. And because, you know, they're not actually real robot spiders, often you have something as sort of a digital placeholder. In this case, it was a neon green football. So Eddie is in the scene getting attacked by the robot spider, which is the neon green football. And he's sort of, at this point, he's not on camera. He's just sort of on the ground somewhere. And I think it was my coverage or Allison's coverage or something. And then I look over, and then Eddie's laying on the ground with the football, not paying attention to anyone else, and no one's paying attention to him. And he's just there going... kind of like looked over, he's like, "Hey Eddie, what you doing?" He was like... Which is, you know, that's kind of classic Eddie. He's just doing his own thing, having fun, which is, that's kind of indicative of the warehouse set. I mean, you've got someone like Eddie who's got this like wild, fun energy, which just sort of brings the whole thing up for everybody else. And I mean, you know, working with Saul, he's Saul Rubinek. He's been in everything. He's, you know, like, it's one of those guys where you're just like, wait a second. I get to work with you? And you're talking to me and like asking me for my opinion on acting things? This is a crazy, weird, bizarre world I've landed myself in. But yeah, that was one of the many things. As they come back to me, I can definitely let you know. Oh, another thing, filming on Warehouse, the director of both episodes I was in, actually, Chris Fisher, he previously done a few Eurekas. But I guess somewhere along the way, from Eureka to Warehouse, he developed this new code word for when something happened with the special effects. Say, when fire was being shot at us, or a net was being shot at us, or I had to like press a button and my lightsaber would come out. Every time, instead of saying like, you know, and spider, net, lightsaber, you go, and event. Event. Because we had 3 in a row at one point. So there was always these weird things where we had to remember what event we were reacting to. And so it was like, I think with the spider we had to duck, for the fire we had to jump, and for the net we had to like run out of the way or something. But that's just kind of what I remember from that episode, because it was so effects heavy, was that we were all kind of disjointed in which event we were exactly dealing with. So I'm sure there's like a bunch of stuff on the cutting room floor where it's, say, me and Allison and Eddie all standing there, and then in the background of the shot you can probably just hear, event! And I'm going, Allison's going, and Eddie's probably doing an Eddie thing where he's like, something like that, I don't know. But yeah, that was some more Warehouse tidbits. Any other questions?
Sarah! Give us some Sarah.
Let me just do some water here. What would you like to hear? I'm still waiting for the point when someone asks me to get Sarah to do their voicemail message. Yeah, I'll do that after, for sure. Figure at some point. Actually, for the Sarah voice, that kind of came about as a complete accident, and me just kind of being a little bit overstepping my bounds. So in the first episode that we came back after the pilot, which had been about a year since we filmed, it was just a throwaway joke when Fargo is leading Jack around Sarah. Jack says, Fargo, is that you talking like a girl? And then Fargo says, no. Well, I took that as yes. And so when we were doing the read-through, they were assigning roles to the characters that, the people weren't present for. And they hadn't cast Sarah yet. They were sort of wondering if they should go and try to find someone famous, see if it was worth it, or like, which way to go. So in sort of the mad dash to cast everybody as these other characters in the pilot just so we could like read it out properly, they sort of forgot to do Sarah. So when that came up, there was a slight hesitation, and then there was a me that came in and did a really weird, creepy voice for some reason. I think the first one was something like this. But more robotic and really slow. So I think it was talking like this. And then there was a point where people were like, that kind of unsettles me. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll talk like this. And they're like, okay, that's a little bit less disturbing. And then it got to a point where Sarah had like a small monologue type thing, and I was still talking in this slow, robotic way, which is when luckily Colin stepped in and was like, yeah, gotta speed that up. We're gonna be here for a really long time otherwise. And then I sped it up, and that's how Sarah happened. And then they let me do it, which was weird and neat.
Hi. I was just watching the Bubble Fargo episode with my daughter. Is there anything, I heard that there was stories about you being stuck in the bubble, or was that?
Yeah, the episode, I remember that fondly. So there were in order to make me float in that bubble, there were three different rigs. They all consisted of a sort of lever type thing attached to a stick with half a bicycle seat on it. And I don't know if you've ever sat on, the front half of the bicycle seat, not the back half. The front half of the bicycle seat supporting my back half. If that puts anything in perspective. So, sometimes it was fine, because occasionally I had, basically like the little stool or whatever that it was attached to had, occasionally, depending on which rig it was, a couple footrests, so I could sort of awkwardly sit there, but then eventually my legs would start hurting, and it was like, which one do I make not hurt more? Man, this is whatever. But there was the scene where I'm sort of, the bubble's at its biggest, and I'm at the highest. I'm probably, 20 to 30 feet up in the air on this giant pulley on the front end of a bicycle seat that's kind of more like a rhinoceros horn. And basically I'm sitting up there, and this is probably hour 12 of shooting, which means I've probably been on the bicycle seat for 10 hours. And then I keep on hearing the assistant directors and everyone going like, okay, everyone, on your marks, let's lock it up. We're gonna go shoot now. And then I'm looking down and everyone's still kind of chatting. I'm like, guys, can we start shooting now? Because I didn't want to talk too hard, because then I flex and then it's weird and uncomfortable. And then I remember at a certain point, Erica, who plays Lupo, I keep on forgetting to use the character names too. She's got this giant prop gun, and she's sort of like pretend shooting it at people and laughing and stuff. And I'm like, oh my god, okay, guys, bicycle seat in bum, let's go, please. And then finally, like, oh, geez, okay. And I did it. And that was, I think, maybe one of the only instances of any human being saying the phrase, "Bicycle seat in bum, let's go please." Also, if you look very closely in that episode, there's a scene where I'm floating, but not too high, but I'm inside a cage. You can actually see the rig that I am sitting on. They didn't digitally take that out, I guess, because there's so many bars. So go back and take a look for that little secret slip-up type thing happen. Well, first, before I ask that, who has seen the finale? Okay, because there might be spoilers ahead here. Now, I don't know if anyone knows the story behind the finale and how that came about. I'm going to tell it to you anyway. So basically what happened is that near the end of season 5, we were filming. Season 4 was airing at that point and doing quite well. And then we got word from the powers that be that we were going to get a half 6th season. So a 6th season, but just 6 episodes. And then we would basically shoot them all. I think this was August. They're like, we'll take a break. We'll shoot them from, I think, the end of September to November. We'll get like a 6th sort of, a nice little arc to finish it off, and then you'll be done. And we're like, yay, at least we get that, I guess, but whatever. And then the next day, we hear, oh, you know what, no, we made a little math mistake, so you're just done. And then we're all kind of like, well, that's really kind of bad, because the last, here will be spoilers, the original last episode, which is now the second to last, the very last part of it is the government coming in and going, Eureka's shut down. And then reactions of us going, what? Huh? No! Cut to credits. And that would have been the end of the series. Which is kind of like, wow, well, yeah, I guess it is over. It's pretty apt, but that doesn't really resolve anything. Great, thanks. So, and when I say the powers that be, it's because I actually literally don't know who makes the decision, because we had the head of the network going to other people saying, please, let's just get one more episode. And we had like a bunch of people sort of on our side. So after a whole bunch of sort of late night meetings and scramblings and stuff, they decided that yes, they would give us one more episode. We had to film it immediately. And that was that. So Jamie Paglia, our one of the co-creators and the co-showrunner / head writer, wrote that episode in about 3 nights. And then had we were getting edits on it the day we were filming it and everything. But to answer your actual question, I think it turned out, quite well, considering it was a completely unexpected thing and it sort of had to wrap up a lot of loose ends or just ignore things, and I think we managed to wrap up quite a few quite decently. If that's where I get to that. All right. Yeah, I am happy with how they finished the character. Yeah, and I like the fact that it left possibilities open. And, be that for a show or just a continuation in comic book form or in novel form or anything like that, or just for people to do fan fiction from. I think it's always nice to have something open and let people be creative with, what they want to do. Yeah.
Could you talk about your time on Wonder Falls?
Ah, yes, Wonder Falls. That was, that was a really fun show to do for me. It was interesting because all of Wonder Falls and Eureka both kind of stem from a pilot I had done in, I want to say 2002, called Time Tunnel, which I think is available on the Time Tunnel box set as a special feature. In it, I played a 14th century monk transplanted through time to World War II, and things happened. Actually, Captain Smith was in that one too. A lot of people might recognize him. He was in Eureka. He's also been in Stardate, and just a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, Todd Holland directed Time Tunnel. He also directed Wonder Falls. And the thing about Time Tunnel is I had to shave my head only halfway in a complete bowl cut, which for, I think I was 20 at the time, wasn't the coolest possibility for things to do. But having that haircut, I couldn't get rid of the bowl for some reason. So a year later, when I went into the Wonder Falls thing, I still kind of had this weird bowl cut thing going on. And Brian Fuller, who was the other co-creator of it, I read in the room with him, and then he called out Todd Holland. He was like, "Oh, there's this guy, I really like him. He's got this really silly kind of bowl cut thing going on." But I think he was in Time Tunnel. I think he did that, right? And then Todd was like, "Yeah, no, he's great. Let's hire him on." So I did that. I got to move to another city, Toronto, live there for 6 months through the humid summers and the frigid, freezing cold winters, and I really quite enjoyed it. I mean, I was such a minor character on that one that I don't know if my character ever left the shop, to tell you the truth. But yeah, it was one of those like neat sort of gigs where I learned a lot because I didn't necessarily have a lot to do, but I also didn't know anybody there other than the cast, and like my best friend who was in school around there, but he was like a 3-hour train ride away. So I spent a lot of time on set, also because there was food on set, so that was good. Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a long time now. It's almost hard to remember exactly what sort of happened on that. It's just really neat to see a bunch of the people from that go on to do other things, like Carolyn DeVerna and Lee Pace. And, it's just, I'm really lucky, I think, to have just even been on that in the capacity that I was. Yes.
So, what was your reaction when you got the scripts for the change in timeline where Fargo was suddenly promoted to the head of GD?
Actually, it was one of the first times I had gone down to LA and spent a significant amount of time there. The writers called me up and were like, "Hey, you gotta come to the room, let's come and chat." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I came in, Bruce and Jamie, the two showrunners, sat me down and were like, "Okay, so this is what happens. This is what we're doing. We've been working really hard on this. So you guys are going to go back in time and change the present." And I was like, "Okay, cool. I think that's kind of been done before. And then what? We change the present, and then 3 episodes later we fix it, right?" And they're like, oh no, you're never going back." And I was like, "Oh, well, this is a little bit more interesting now." And they're like, "Oh yeah, and also you're the head of GD now." And I was like, "What?" And I was just really confused and excited. I think I might have done a happy dance, but I don't know if it came off as a happy dance and more of a there's a crab in my pants out or something, and "Hey, the bug," one of those things. But no, I was really excited. I thought it was, I'm trying to think of a better word, because I can only think of one there's younger people in here right now, but I'll just say the word brave. I thought it was very brave of sci-fi to allow that to happen and to stick with the idea of basically changing the show and perhaps the tone of the show and actually just committing to it. I know, for us, the actors, I'm going to speak for all of us, we all really, really enjoyed the opportunity that we got to change up our characters a bit and just the way that we could interact with each other. It also was kind of handy because at that point we had built up so many almost loose ends that we never had, just things that we never finished, or like certain characters appeared, it seemed like they were going to be like kind of big or supporting, and then just disappeared for some reason. And then basically what happened with that too is between seasons 3 and 4, they restaffed. So they got new showrunners, a lot of new writers, and all of them went to like a lodge somewhere for a week or 2 weeks and just talked about the characters, talked about the show, talked about what they wanted to do, and then came to the network with their plans to have this big time change thing. But I guess they were so confident with it and the way they presented it to them and their like stacks and stacks of information and ideas really impressed sci-fi, and they actually let us do it, which was really cool for us. Very neat. Yeah, I mean,